It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is the Locked On Auburn Podcast, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast, brought to you by Fetch Me Home Delivery. Shout out to our friends at Fetch Me, run by an Auburn alum. You gotta love that. You can get your first delivery free with Fetch Me. Use promo code FetchMe20. And now that November is here, they are starting a new late night delivery service on Friday and Saturdays between 11 and 2. They sent me a PDF with information of all of the services that they offer that late. And I'll tell you what, it's definitely worth checking out. Go to FetchMeDelivery.com or their free Fetch Me app. Once again, use promo code FetchMe20. It's not just Auburn, it's in Opelika as well, which is actually where I live. So it's it is fantastic. And hey, they're now also helping out with the Beat Bama food drive, because they're Auburn people, so they know beating Alabama in anything is a good thing. So they're doing their Beat Bama campaign for the third year in a row, and they match 100% of all donations. Help Fetch Me beat Bama and also get the word out. They do great things for our community. So support them, and you don't have to leave the house when you do that. So use the promo code FetchMe20, FetchMe20 for your first delivery free. And thank you for Fetch Me for sponsoring today's show. I'm recording this like 5 o'clock in the morning, so my voice is a little but got some stuff that I got to do right after my show. So I got a little early to knock this out. Coming up after I kind of talk about Auburn basketball's season opener from last night, Chad Slade joins us. Painter Sharpless stops by the studio to ask Chad a few questions. But Chad Slade, now the offensive lineman for the Giants, he tweeted out some things after Auburn's fan base kind of left the game early. And so I sent him a DM like, hey, can we talk about this on the show? He said, absolutely. So super nice guy, super well-spoken. I'd never spoken to Chad before, so stay tuned for that. But, yeah, quick look at Auburn basketball. They beat Georgia Southern last night, which is kind of what you expected. But, hey, Georgia Southern hung in there. I mean, this was the ball game until about, I would say, 12 minutes left to go in the game is really when I felt comfortable with everything. I know some fans were a little upset with how close it was, but look, I mean, it was an 83-74 game, and they were rusty. And I think this kind of speaks to the culture and how it's changed, because I think 3 or 4 years ago, Auburn actually loses this game. But they've got so much more talent than other folks now. I think they're going to be okay for the majority of this non-conference and kind of allow them to get their feet up under them. Guys are playing different roles this year. We'll get into that. So your starters at point, Javon McCormick. At the 2, Samir Dowdy, who was incredible. At small forward, the 3, Isaac Okoro. At the 4, D'Angelo Purifoy. And then at center, Austin Wiley. And before the game, it was announced that Georgia Southern would be without their 6'8 player, Simeon Carter. And so the story then was like, okay, Austin Wiley, you need to eat, man. You need to take over this basketball game. And also before the game, shout out to Georgia Southern's play-by-play guy, Danny Reed. He was wearing the Rod and Paula Bramlett button last night. They kind of honored Rod. They had his, that RB under the baskets and throughout Auburn Arena. And yesterday was Rod's birthday and his daughter's birthday. I didn't realize they had the same birthday, but shout out to Danny Reed. He posted some stuff, some pretty cool stuff, and took pictures with Andy and Sonny, Auburn's radio crew. I thought that was pretty neat. So thank you so much, Danny, for doing that. That was a class move, no doubt. So, yeah, the shortest offseason Auburn basketball history came to an end, and it was a sloppy start. I mean, they turned it over twice in like the first 30 seconds. I mean, it was an ugly, ugly start. And, they still found a way to lead at the half, largely because of 2 late threes by Devin Cambridge late, but we'll get there in a second. But in the first 25 possessions, Auburn turned it over 11 times. And, I mean, I have here written down in my notes early on, but it was really the whole game. Samir Dowdy, if you knew nothing about this Auburn team, didn't know how they acquired all of these players or where they came from, how long they've been with the team, and you just were going into last night's game blind, and you were watching that, you would say Samir Dowdy is by far the best player on the court because he sure looked it last night. Sure looked it last night. And, I mean, he had 20 points. He led everyone in the game. He led everyone in the game. Auburn's next highest scorer, they had 2 at 13. That was D'Angelo Purifoy and Austin Wiley. But, I mean, Samir Dowdy was able to contribute in every way possible. He was scoring. He had rebounds. He played defense. He had assists. And he led Auburn in minutes. He had 32. Purifoy also had 32. Purifoy, a quiet 13, and he was good. He was good. But, yeah, Samir Dowdy was really the only shooter that I think was effective. Isaac Okoro was 6 for 9. Purifoy went 4 for 9. You want him to be better than that. And also, 7 of Purifoy's 9 shots were threes, and I don't think I like that. Wiley went 5 for 7, but, I mean, all that was high percentage stuff. Samir Dowdy went 6 for 10, 1 for 3 from behind the arc. I like that he's kind of attacking the basket. The Javon McCormick was 4 for 10, 0 for 4 from behind the arc. I don't know if I want McCormick shooting the ball 10 times right now until he gets going. But that's, I mean, he and Dowdy took the most shots on the team. And based on that last night, I don't know if Javon needs to be shooting it 10 times a game right now. But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, it was early. It was very clear they were rusty. Isaac Okoro's first points, he had the 3 wide open. He passed it up, kind of did a pump, and he attacked the basket, and it was a violent slam, and it was incredible. It was beautiful, and the guy looks like an NFL wide receiver. He's a true freshman. So, I mean, that's a guy that you want. That's a guy that he does not shy away from physicality. I know he had at least 2 offensive fouls that I can recall. It may have been more than that. Let's see, how many fouls did he end up with? He ended up with 3. I know at least 2 of those were offensive. I mean, he's going to be a physical guy. And in games where they let the players do that, he's got a chance to take over. Once he gets any kind of perimeter game going, he is going to be special. He's going to be special. And I just think over the course of the season, once you get into conference play and, other teams are kind of beaten up a little bit just because it's a grind, I think he's going to be able to beat some guys up. I really do. The other freshman that I loved watching play last night, and I didn't expect it, Devin Cambridge. He wears number 35. He had 2 clutch threes at the end of the first half, and that really allowed Auburn to go into the half with the lead and then kind of be a lot more confident. And I think that was a big part of how the game developed. Let's see. Do I have other stuff on Cambridge? I do. I have here that Devin Cambridge is going to be a fan favorite this year. He's going to do the dirty work and make plays when his number is called. I mean, like I said, I really liked Devin Cambridge. I mean, he outside of Okoro, he led the freshmen in minutes. So you had your starters that all got, Wiley got 20, but everybody else got around 30 minutes as far as the starters go. And then coming off the bench, there were 3 guys with relevant minutes. Really just 2. Anthony McLemore had 21, and Devin Cambridge had 15. And that surprises me. I didn't expect that going in. I mean, Cambridge is a guy that he was the last spot that needed to be filled in Auburn's recruiting class. But he's got hustle, man. He runs down plays, and Bruce clearly likes that. He clearly likes it. Let's see. I didn't like I did not like Javon McCormick's play last night, despite him getting 29 minutes. It was just a bad game for him. And I think that's okay. I don't think it's that big of a deal. But I really liked, it seemed like Auburn was at its best when they let Samir take it down the court and Jamal Johnson was playing the 2. And I think that was just a small sample size. Javon McCormick, I mean, he's not used to starting a game. He's used to coming off the bench. And you know what? Late, Javon McCormick put the game away. And there was about 5 minutes left to go in the game. He attacks the basket, makes it, gets an and one, makes the 3-point play. And I think that was the dagger. And then a few minutes later, I think it was about 3 minutes left to go, he does it again. He doesn't get fouled, but he attacks the basket, gets another easy 2. And I mean, that was the bulk of his points right there. He only scored 9, but that was solid. I really like that. It shouldn't take him till 14 and a half minutes left to go in the second half for your starting point guard to score. But I'm okay chalking up, Javon just having a bad night last night. The alley-oops were there all night, and this is just his team learning to play with each other. I think Auburn fans were kind of spoiled and really underappreciated the chemistry that last year's team had. But the alley-oops were there all night, and it was just bad passes, bad timing. If they make half of those, I mean, this is a rout early. So I'm not too worried about that. I mean, Auburn was just better than Georgia Southern. They wore them down. I mean, and I think this Auburn team is a more physically tough team than we've seen in the past, which is something to be excited about. All right, Coming up, conversation with Chad Slade, former Auburn offensive lineman, and we will chat about that and more. Stay tuned right here on the Locked On Auburn podcast.
Finding the right pros for home projects can be tough and spark a lot of questions, like, how do I find a pro who can help? Will they do a good job? Will I get a fair price? Well, that's where HomeAdvisor can help. From leaky faucets to major remodels, HomeAdvisor connects you to the right pro for the job in seconds and even helps you get a fair price. Read reviews, check project cost guides, and book appointments. Go to HomeAdvisor.com or download the free HomeAdvisor app to start your next project.
Your team.
Greetings, 12 Locked On Seahawks podcast.
Who dat family, and welcome into this week's Locked On Saints.
Hello to all you Foxborough faithful, Locked On Patriots.
Every day.
Another Victory Monday.
It's officially Throwback Tuesday.
Crossover Wednesday episode.
Thursday Night Football.
It is Red Friday edition.
When it comes to the biggest stories.
And so the Chiefs' news story of today is, unfortunately, at this point in the season, it is continuing to be injuries.
You need to be locked on.
We've touched about it on this show and all over Twitter and all that.
And all of a sudden we have a great football team with a championship defense, a franchise quarterback, a running game that can't be stopped. This is exactly why we watch football.
Good quarterbacks are maximized in good systems, and that's exactly what we're seeing with Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers this season.
Wherever you get your podcasts.
In the Apple Podcast app.
Google Podcasts.
Spotify.
Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're now joined by Chad Slade, former Auburn lineman, now with the Giants. Chad, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Appreciate you taking a few minutes to chat with us. I know you were out late last night playing some Monday Night Football, but there's been a lot of talk all year about the offensive line at Auburn, and I think you would know better than anyone what it's like to be an offensive lineman. You know, during your time on the Plains, what have you thought of this group up front so far this season?
This group, they've been looking good so far to me. Honestly, you know, we have so much senior leadership up there on that line. They've been together for 3+ years, and it kind of reminds me of when we were there with me, Reese, Sean Coleman, Avery Young, and Kozan and everybody. It just kind of reminds me of that. I mean, it takes so long to gel, and I feel like that's what they're doing. They're gelling. You have Markel, you have Prince, you have Mike, and you have Jack, or, in the centers, you have two good centers.
Sure.
And I feel like they're doing, they're doing everything they can. They're working together, and I feel like this is going to be a group that's going to really improve in November for sure.
There's kind of been a lot of different running backs to block for this year. I mean, Boo Boo Whitlow's kind of been battling some injury, and then, Cam Martin and Sean Shivers, the young guy, DJ Williams, now kind of getting some reps. What's it like blocking for different running backs kind of from game to game?
It's kind of like you really have to get the style. You have to get the feel for what kind of style running back you have. I feel like you have Booby, who's a downhill runner. He's a trucker. He likes to go downhill, and then you have the new guy DJ that's came in, and he's been doing a great job as well. And I feel like it's really on the offensive line to get it going. So I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, you might have different running backs, you might have a different backfield, but you can't really, as an offensive lineman, you can't really get that to you. You have to, block everything how it is, and you have to communicate. You have to, that's the most important thing as an offensive lineman is having the communication with the running back, having the communication with the quarterback, and I feel like they're doing a great job with that. I mean, we're not getting some results, but I mean that comes with a young quarterback, and that's just how it is. I mean, I'm not really the one to make excuses for everything, but I feel like it's positive things that's going to happen for them coming up soon. Which, I mean, people really don't understand that. I mean, it takes a while for a quarterback to gel with the offensive line, and
Sure.
I feel like they had their rough games, especially with this Ole Miss game. They had tough games with LSU and Florida, but I feel like something big is coming. I feel it honestly because I just, I've been through that situation. I've been through, the 3-9s and all that stuff, but I see a lot of potential in this offense.
You tweeted it out, and a lot of Auburn fans are kind of in the same boat. You're sitting here, you're 7-2. I mean, you got a chance to be in the top 10 going into the Georgia game. And, there's a lot of the fan base that's upset. I know you still have relationships with a lot of the players that are still here at Auburn. And they were kind of tweeting and calling some of the fan base out. What are your thoughts on that? We hadn't really seen that at Auburn before.
Yeah, I mean, it hurts. It sometimes hurts, empty stadium and all that because, I mean, we feed off fans. We feed off the excitement. We feed off the night game in Jordan here. It's things like that that keeps us going. And, I mean, for us to be 72 and sitting in this spot, I understand people's frustration. I know. And don't get me wrong, I see my opinion. I get frustrated sometimes too watching the game, but at the end of the day, what goes on through those four walls and everything else, I mean, at the end of the day, they're still 18 to 20-year-old kids. They want to see the excitement. They want to see the loud Jordan here. I mean, we don't want to just see that in Georgia and Alabama. We want to see that the whole time. I mean, the season is not over for us. I mean, anything can happen. And I feel like people really need to understand, like, the frustration that these players are seeing, that it's like, okay, well, you only love us when we're at our best. I mean, when we're struggling, we want that excitement still. So, I mean, I understand the frustration for fans, and I understand the frustration for, the players. But at the end of the day, I mean, we still have a long way to go. And, everybody knows that it's championship November. So
sure,
our two most important games are coming up. So as long as we get those two wins, I mean, it can save our season. It can, it can be something, bright for the future, especially for recruits and everything like that. We don't want recruits seeing fans leave the game early while we're, in a good position. We're still in a hunt to, go to a great bowl game or even in the playoffs. So, I mean, it's things like that. So, I mean, I see the frustration from both sides, and I got a lot of feedback from it. So,
sure,
I'm just trying to base off of that.
How do you think Malzahn and this coaching staff will respond to the players tweeting that out? Do you think they'll have a conversation about it or make them run? I have a hard time seeing anybody like missing any time or anything, just kind of based on the time of the year, and it doesn't seem like that dire of a situation. But do you think a conversation is had? Do you think they're running a little bit more? Do you think there's any kind of repercussions from that, or do they say, hey, what they said kind of was true, we're going to let it go?
No, I think Malzahn's going to address it because, I mean, he's the type that he doesn't want, to see the negative things of outside of the thing, which, I mean, like I said, I understand the frustration from the players, but at the end of the day, you can't tweet, you can't let 140 character tweet, get out like that, showing the frustration and all that, get into it with fans and everything like that. You can't let that happen. You got to, trust everything within those four walls at the, the Auburn complex. I mean, everything about it is, I mean, it's a brotherhood in Auburn. So, I mean, it's not like, you can't give up on that person. You can't let negative things from the outside come inside the building or anything like that. We have to, go as a team, fight as a team. It's a brotherhood. So, like I said, but it's things like that. I think he's going to address it. He's going to probably be like, don't let a tweet, don't tweet out anything crazy for fans to get into possibly is going to end the wrong way. So I feel like he's going to address it, but I don't feel like he's going to be any running for it. But it's going to be addressed, and I mean we'll see how it goes.
I always find it interesting talking with folks that played for Malzahn that are now no longer at Auburn to get their thoughts on playing for the guy, especially offensive players. And offensive players talk about Malzahn in a very high manner. I know there's a big chunk of the fan base that is kind of anti-Gus right now, but you as a former offensive player, what are your thoughts on Gus Malzahn?
My thing on Gus, he's a great coach. I mean, he's a type of coach that, he doesn't, go the extra mile to yell at the players or, do anything like that. He's all about football. So, I mean, I understand people's frustration about, it's a predictable offense or it's just, I can do this. But what people don't realize was in 2013 and when we were, decent and all that, we would literally be on a drive and we would literally run the same play over and over and over again. Nobody could stop us. We just had that mentality in our head that nobody could stop us. Malzahn, he's a good coach. I know everybody's frustrated with him, and I know people want to see a change. People want to see this and that, but at the end of the day, I mean, I'm going to always stick to my coach. I mean, he's what got me to where I'm at today. I'm mentally more tough for, because of Malzahn and everything like that. And I see frustration from Auburn fans because, I mean, I understand because I feel like we should be 8-1 10-1, 10-0. We should be undefeated, but
sure,
things don't always work out that way. So, I mean, you just got to support the team while you can, and you got to literally, just get the coaching staff positive vibes and all that. But I understand people's frustration. Like I said, I can say that many times because I know they're frustrated. I know fans are frustrated. They're tired. They're, they hate to see it. But, I mean, at the end of the day, man, they just have to literally, just stick with the team. And, if something happens, something happens. But I'm always going to stick with my coaches. I love my coaches. I would never say anything bad about them. But, I mean, at the end of the day, I understand people's frustration.
Chad, in 2014, you were a starting offensive lineman. You'd played a number of games at that point in your career. And in a similar setup to the end of the season, you guys just coming off of a big win at Ole Miss and then losing a disappointing game to Texas A&M. And from there, it felt like in November the season kind of came apart. There was some apathy on the part of the student section. I think, later on that year with the final home game being a Samford game. Your thoughts on how the team sticks together and blocks out what, a lot of people think will be a disappointing November. I'm not one of those people. I think this is an opportunity for Auburn to finish the season with 10 wins in the regular season.
Yeah, it comes to the thing that, when I was in school, I always used to tweet, I take everything game by game, so it's November to me, back when I was in college, was a whole new season for me. So I literally would, if we won the game against Ole Miss, we're 1-0. I don't take games like, oh yeah, we might be 7-2. No, November is a different month for Auburn football. It's the mentality now that, okay, well, now we have our biggest rivals coming up. Like, we have Georgia Bulldogs coming in. We have the other team from across the state coming in. During that time, man, you just have to really, block out every negative thing. You can't look at Twitter. You can't look at social media. You have to literally just go out there, grind with your teammates, and do what you got to do. Because, I mean, if you take care of stuff on the field, stuff off the field is going to be great. And I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen twice. Because my freshman year, even though I was redshirted, I got to be there with Cam Newton. I got to see that line grow up, with Zimba and, Pugh, Brandon Mosley and all that. And that's where I got my mentality from when I was in college, from them. And to see them block out all the negativity, block out all the, back then, it didn't matter. They was going to fill up the stands to see Cam anyways. I mean, who wouldn't? So, I mean, it's things like that. You got to block out the negativity. I believe in Bo. I mean, everybody, was upset about the Gatewood transfer and everything like that. But at the end of the day, you can't really just, let it oh, yeah, we got to, sulk over this. I mean, still more season to go. So, I mean, they just got to block it out, get the grinding, and get these wins, because if you don't get these wins, then it's going to be more negative stuff going on. So I believe in this team, and I believe that something special is going to happen.
Your thoughts on J.B. Grimes? You all had a ton of success with him as the offensive line coach while you were a part of the team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, JB is one of the greatest coaches I've ever had. So, I mean, I would never, ever, doubt that he would have that O-line ready, because he had us ready game in and game out. So I know that, like I told you, like Markel, Prince, everybody, they're ready to go. Because, I mean, they go in there. I mean, the one thing that JB preaches all the time is the little things. And he probably don't think that I will remember it because I'm old. But that's something that's been in my head for 5 years now. You always got to worry about the little things. You can't worry about, oh yeah, you can't just scratch. You got to scratch and claw, and eventually something's gonna boom, it's gonna happen. So I mean, you might in a game you might get 2 to 3 yards. You might get 2 to 3 yards, and then boom, you might bust out for a 50-yard, 40-yard run. It's things like that. You got to keep clawing. You got to keep doing the little things right. And that's something that JB preaches all the time, and I know he still does to this day. So, I mean, I've been down there, during the summer. During the spring, got, the chance to eat with, JB and the offensive line. And, I know that they're in great spirits. I know they have a great guy leading them. So, I mean, I feel like, it's something that's good for him. JB is very good for this offensive line.
Chad, how's the transition been from playing at Auburn, spending a lot of time at Auburn, and then working your way into the NFL? How has that transition been?
It's been going good for me. It's been a tough road for me, of course. Came out undrafted. It's something that most people want to be drafted. Most people want to see it, and I've had to work my way. Rookie year, I was on IR. I've been on the practice squads, and I've been on active as well. And this year, I was blessed enough to make the 53-man roster coming out of the training camp as a tackle. So, it's been a good thing for me to be able to move around. The versatility has helped me a lot being at Auburn since I started everywhere. A game at Auburn everywhere but center. So it kind of helped me out in NFL in the long run. And, I can't complain. I'm blessed to, get everything I have for me. And I'm just continuing to work. I know right now that we're going through a little rough patch right now. But, I feel like we're going to turn it around here soon. Play the Jets next. So
sure.
I feel like it's definitely going to come for us. We're going to turn around, start getting some wins.
In the game Monday night, there's a lot of talk on the internet, videos of the cat that was in the end zone. Did you guys laugh about that in the locker room?
Yeah, we saw. It kind of delayed the game. So,
yeah.
Everybody was sitting there like seeing the cat run and do all this, and most of my teammates, we're big guys. We're big 300-pound guys, and we're like, man, who's gonna go get the cat? Like, are we gonna let it run around for a little bit, or we're gonna go get it? But the crazy thing about it, we was on the opposite side of the field, so we just let the cat run and do his thing. The fans loved it, the fans enjoyed it, and it was a great thing to see him out there. It's just, I know all the cats around the world were watching, so they was rooting on their little friends. So it was a good thing to see, but it definitely got the crowd pumped.
That's funny. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. One last question, Chad, and I appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us today. But what's it like having Saquon in the same room as you? A guy like Saquon Barkley. Obviously, just watching him play, he's a special running back. But what's it like blocking for him?
It's a great thing, man. I wish we would have offered him at Auburn because honestly, like just seeing this man like now he does stuff that is just incredible. Like last week we played the Lions and he had like stiffed on the guy, then he did like 2 spins to get a first down. It's things like that. He's just unbelievably crazy athlete, great person. Quads about big as my about big as my bicep.
Sure.
He's definitely one of the best running backs in the league. So he comes to work every day. He's a hard worker, cool guy, funny guy. But I honestly can't. I'm blessed enough to be able to be in his presence, blocking with him and everything like that. And hopefully, I see great things coming in his future for sure.
Chad, thank you so much for your time today, man, and best of luck with the rest of the season and everything moving forward, boss.
I appreciate you.
When you're finished with today's episode, the Locked On Podcast Network has an amazing national show lineup for you. Every Monday, the new Hollinger and Duncan NBA show brings you insight from former NBA executive and analytics guru John Hollinger. Rejecting the Screen brings you 2 episodes a week with fun NBA talk and a long-form interview every Thursday. Your daily 30-minute NBA show is Locked On NBA, updating you on the previous night's action and looking ahead to what's next. The Locked On Podcast Network All-Star National Lineup, Hollinger and Duncan NBA Show, Rejecting the Screen, and Locked On NBA.
Good stuff from Chad Slade. Appreciate him taking a few minutes. It's crazy. The college football playoff rankings come out last night, and that's not the lead. That is how much Bruce Pearl has changed the culture here. But Auburn football comes in at number 11 in the first college football playoff rankings of the year. And LSU and Alabama, that is the game of the century that they were dubbing it, is not 1 versus 2. It is 2 versus 3. It's clear that the College Football Playoff Committee loves Ohio State. Little surprised. They were kind of citing the point differential. They lead the country in that. And, they've got good offense. They've got good defense. So we'll see. And, the Big Ten, they're allowed to get quality wins now. So that's something. But, hey, Michael and I discussed this a few shows ago, sometime last week, where I brought up the point that Auburn's not out of it. They've got a chance at this. They need some stuff to happen. They need some help, and they need to beat Georgia and Alabama, obviously, but they've got a chance at this, sitting at 11. And a big reason why I say that is I don't think the College Football Playoff Committee wants to put Clemson in. At number 5, they do not like the defending champs. I think that's evident. No one would have blinked or batting an eye if they put them at 3 or 4. But I think the bottom line here is they do not respect what they've done so far this season. So one slip up from Clemson, and they're out. They're out. So obviously Auburn needs help, but I think the path is there, and I think fans should be excited for it. So we'll chat about that more in depth later this week and early next week when we set up the Auburn-Georgia game. Hope you guys enjoyed the conversation with Chad Slade, and we'll be back tomorrow. This has been another edition of the Locked On Auburn podcast.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Locked On Podcast Network has the ultimate NBA podcast starting 5. Starting at podcast number 1 is your favorite team's daily podcast from a local expert. Starting at the podcast number 2 is Locked On NBA, your daily 30-minute look at what happened the night before and what's upcoming. At the number 3 spot is Locked On Fantasy Basketball, the number 1 fantasy basketball show in the land. And the podcast number 4 position is Rejecting the Screen with Noah Kozlov and Adam Stanko. And finally, the big men in the middle, the unequaled Hollinger and Duncan NBA show with former NBA executive and analytics godfather John Hollinger. It's Locked On Podcast Network's NBA Podcast Ultimate Starting 5. Follow all 5 on your favorite podcast provider.